Welcome to our Shed Talk here on October 6th, 2023. Friends, my name is Brian. But want to welcome you as we give it just another couple of minutes for all of the folks who want to be here today to join on in, all of our incredible members that we have here. It is a lovely day here in Chicago, Illinois. It's a little on the fall side of things, so happy fall, everybody. It's around 60 degrees. It was around 57 this morning, so it was a little bit chilly coming in, but hey, that's it's October, so welcome to fall and spooky season as well. But nothing spooky about our topic today. We're going to give it just a couple more minutes as we wait for folks to come on in, sign on in, and navigate the technosphere, if you will. I don't even know if that's a word. I probably made it up. But welcome. It's a Friday. We're making words up today. So come on in, get cozy, get comfy. Friends, if you are just joining us, there are lots of ways that we're going to be engaging today. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we get more folks in. But if you're joining us and if you want to participate via the chat function, if you hover over the main Zoom call with your mouse, or if you're on a tablet or your phone with your finger, you'll see a little pop-up screen. That's usually a black bar that says chat with a little sort of text icon. Click on that and you can chat to us. We've got Amy saying hello in the chat as well. But if you've got a keyboard handy and you don't see that black bar, the quick key to get there is Alt plus H. So either the left or right Alt, it's at the sides of your space bar. You just press that plus H and that'll pop up the chat window and you can type all sorts of fun things. And we're going to be interacting today, not just through the chat, but lots of different ways. We're coming up on just a couple of minutes in here. I'm going to give it just another minute or two so that way folks can sign on in. I know we've had some Zoom technology issues with updates, things like that. So we're just going to give folks an opportunity to download or install or update as necessary to join us today, because I don't want anybody to miss this incredible opportunity with one of the best folks around Shed Aquarium. I won't spoiler alert just yet who that is. It could be anybody at this point. But yeah, we're going to be focusing on all of the work that Shed Aquarium is doing to revitalize the Chicago River, one of the most important resources besides the lake, of course, that we have right here in our backyards. And so it's going to be incredible to see how Shed is taking responsibility to be shepherds of not just the aquatic world here, but there and everywhere. So once again, we're going to give it just another minute. We're going to wait a whole 5 minutes to get started. I know we've got a lot to talk about, so I don't want to wait too much longer than that. But we'll wait for another minute or so as folks sign on in. Welcome if you are just joining us. Once again, my name is Brian. So happy to have you here. It is Friday, October 6th, 2023, right here coming at you from Chicago, Illinois at Shed Aquarium, which is pretty exciting. So once again, friends, we're going to be interacting all throughout the day. Once again, we can do that through chat. We can do that through all sorts of different fun ways that I'm going to introduce in just another minute. We're really trying to play with ways to engage folks, not just through these Shed Talks, but all throughout the year with lots of different ways as members to engage with us and to really make a difference for the aquatic world, which is pretty darn special. All right. Well, it is 5 minutes past, so we're just going to get started. And as folks come on in, hopefully they'll be able to just dive on in and participate straight away. So first off, that's what I want to talk about is how to participate today. And we're going to be doing lots of different sort of word clouds. We're going to be asking you questions. We're going to be getting your thoughts, your ideas. And so up on the screen right now, we've got that QR code that you can scan with a cell phone if you have it, or if you're joining us from a computer, please head to menti.com. It's really simple, menti.com, and just enter that 8-digit code that you see there, 8832-8468. And we've got lots of fun and exciting ways to get you involved today. So I'm really excited to take part in this. And so let's just jump on in really quick since we do have some folks joining in. And let's just ask the first question straight away. So look, I'm going to pull up that QR code in 1 second, but before we even start and learn about the ways that Shed Aquarium has been taking care of the Chicago River, here's our first question. what word or words come to your mind when you think of the Chicago River right now? So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to share a different screen so that way everybody has an opportunity to participate in this word cloud because I'm really excited to see how it might shift and change as we learn and discover all the incredible ways that shed has helped. Okay, look, we've already got some folks. We've got poor water quality, dirty, pollution. Yes, we're going to give it just a couple more minutes for folks to type in some more words. I think we've got between 1 and 3 words everybody's able to type in. And friends, feel free to participate. If you're not comfortable using technology, that is okay as well. It's really just a fun tool for all of us to engage. But yeah, so already, ooh, reversed. I love that. Industry, yes, is a more poor water quality, dirty. But I think there is a sense that we're getting here, not the highest level of quality I'm seeing. Yes, some more words coming in. Wow, I love this. This is amazing. I love the colors too that it brings out. All right. So, friends, we've got sort of an idea, a basis of what we think the Chicago River right now um, means to us. So, right now, let me just swap my screens. Oh, and some more people are coming in. Yeah, and feel free to keep adding throughout this presentation. Like I said, we're going to be doing a bunch more as well. But back to who it is we're actually going to be hearing from today. So, friends, today we are joined by, of course, myself. My name is Brian. I am the coordinator for the public engagement team here at Shed. Our team helps take care of all of the on-floor programming. So, if you come and visit us, we're the folks narrating the animal spotlights. You might find us at chats all throughout different habitats around the aquarium, from the sharks to the kelp forest to the belugas to the penguins, you name it, we're there to help bridge that gap and to discover these animals with you together. So, but this isn't about me. This is about the people in person who is boots, literally boots, on the ground or in the kayak. And we are joined today by Austin Happel, Dr. Austin Happel, my apologies, who is one of our research biologists with our freshwater ecosystems and the person of the hour here to explain all of the incredible ways that Shed Aquarium is helping out the aquatic world. So right now, you're not going to see me anymore. I'm going to replace my face with the face of the hour right there. Austin, welcome. We've got you. It looks like you're right there up at the top of the screen, which is pretty fantastic. How are you this morning?
Awesome. I'm doing great. How are you, Brian?
Oh, I'm excited. I'm excited to get ready and to have you share all of this exciting information with our friends that have just joined us. So let's take it away. Here we go.
Yeah. So I don't know if people have seen some of the work that we've displayed or talked about on the Chicago River, but for me, it always helps to take a step back and start to understand how the river got to be the way it is now before we start talking about all the different ways Shed is involved in the river and how those can help it. Because if you don't have that kind of background, then it doesn't make a whole lot of sense what we're currently seeing and what we're trying to understand. So with that, we'll show an image here of what the Chicago River area sort of looked like before settlement and during early settlement. So before the huge metropolis was here, we had the Chicago rivers. Those were a south branch and a north branch. They drained some wetlands that were in the area and flowed out into Lake Michigan. We also had the Calumet rivers, which were two rivers that drained from Indiana, kind of flow into what we now call Illinois and out into Lake Michigan. And then over to the west, we have the Des Plaines River, which drains just west of the city, flows all the way down, and then meets up with the Illinois, that meets up with the Mississippi, and out to the Gulf of Mexico. And between these three rivers was a large moraine or a giant pile of rocks that kept these rivers sort of separated.
Oh, wow.
Between the Des Plaines River and the Chicago River, there was actually a little swamp, and the Native American or indigenous people that lived in the area could use that to transport goods back and forth. Settlers became aware of it, were shown that connection, and decided to start settling the area. And during this time, we used that connection to transport goods between the Great Lakes and the Mississippi River Basin. At the same time, we were using these rivers as drinking water sources, as well as a way of dispatching sewage and waste and trash. Um, and then on that left image, you can see there's still the water intake cribs. We were actually pulling drinking water from Lake Michigan as the city developed around these rivers. So you can imagine dumping sewage into the rivers that were then flowing out to where we were taking drinking water from wasn't the best idea.
Yeah.
So in the late 1800s, they decided to reverse the river by building some 31 new river miles. Those included in the center of the screen there, it says the main channel, just south of that, the Cal-Sag channel, and up in the far north, connecting to Wilmette, the North Shore Channel. All of those were built, and they all have the word channel next to them because they are fully like walled off. So they have these straight steel walls, or maybe it's just like straight dug down into the ground. And so they're very, I don't know, direct in the way that they flow. But this
Yeah.
allowed a lot of barge traffic. And so Chicago wouldn't be here if we hadn't done this. This allowed a lot of commerce for the city. We were once known as the hog butcher to the world, the largest grain port in the world. We had a huge lumber port, and all of that was due to these connections. Um, and that allowed the city to flourish at the same time, allowed us to get rid of waste. A lot of sewage was dumped into the river and sent downstream, down into the Mississippi River Basin, and saving our water intake. So, I guess our next question,
Yeah.
uh, right, is how many fish do we think lived in the river at this time? The water quality was pretty poor. We were using it as a sewage, basically treatment facility. We were using it as a transportation facility, and we dug out all of the sides and kind of reduced its ability to uh, uh, interact with the ecosystem around it. So
Yeah.
let's
Now,
see, what
friends,
do people think?
on the screen, yeah, we've got our QR code back up. So if you did exit out of Menti, now is your opportunity to jump back in and start to engage with this question. But it looks like we've already got some people jumping in, taking some guesses. But yeah, how many species of fish lived in the Chicago River during this time of, yeah, poor water quality? I think he says it. I mean, waste has to go somewhere, right? All right, here we go. We've got, oh, it looks split 50-50 right now. We're going to give it just another couple of moments for folks to navigate the technology to try to get their voices heard. But yeah, this is fascinating. The number of choices. Oh, we've got it. Oh, we got 14 coming in here. We're jumping up. We love it. Oh my gosh, this is so cool to see in real time. Um, but Austin, what do you think of these guesses so far? I mean, obviously you know the answer, but what do you think of all the different guesses?
I, I think well, one, how does this question work? I haven't seen what are people entering in
Oh, it has I think 4 or 5 different options.
options. Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
guys made it multiple choice, a multiple
Yeah, we
choice.
made it a little bit easier, just a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, well, let's see here. We've got a tie between 9 and less than 5, and then we've got that lone wolf, number 14 out there. So, Austin, what do you think?
Yeah, back in the so that image on the right, I believe is an image of Bubbly Creek.
It looks like it, yeah.
One part of the
There's the
river that
bridge.
had so much sewage in it, you could walk across it. There's like is there a chicken in the center of it walking on it? Uh,
Yeah, right
it
there.
was a rather inhospitable place. Back then we found less than 5 species. Um,
Wow, less than 5.
those were things like most people have had like a goldfish they won at a county fair that could live in almost anything. We'd find those around and their relatives, common carp. Um, Another species that were pretty common was a species called a blunt-nosed minnow, which a lot
Mm.
of like the EPA uses a lot in toxicology studies because they can survive a good amount of things, but then that can tell us how do they respond to those pollutants. And so those were some of the species we found back then.
Wow. All right. So obviously lots of things contributed to that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the main ones was that we had built pipes that led straight from our buildings and our roads out to the river. And so
Wow.
back then it was just raw sewage and even stormwater going into these pipes and going straight to the river. If you didn't know, to be able to build those pipes and have them have a gradient to them, we actually lifted up downtown about a floor or two, which is why
Wow.
we have that weird lower whacker creepy area that you can go in.
Wow.
That was done again so that water would flow in these pipes and go out. In the 1920s, we developed sewage treatment. Those sewage treatment plants required a separate tunnel or tube to be built underneath it. But that tube has a very specific diameter because they can only run off of a very specific flow rate. And so a lot of the Midwest was ended up being built this way because we get so much stormwater, we can overwhelm that sewage treatment plant pipe. And we had to build this system leaving that opening over on the side. So here on this right image, you can see during a wet weather event, stormwater mixes with the sewage water and can still overflow into the river. And so this is called a combined sewer overflow system. The way almost all of these cities are trying to get rid of it is by building deep tunnels and reservoirs. These will finally disconnect the way that we treat storm and sewage water from local water sources, including here in Chicago. In Chicago, we call it the Tunnel and Reservoir Plan. Other areas have different names for it, like the Big Dig or the Deep Tunnel or something. But these are set to fully kind of disentangle the natural systems from our untreated sewage and stormwater systems.
So obviously, Austin, that's going to have an impact then once we're able to remove that sewage essentially from those waterways. It might impact the animals that are able to thrive there, right?
Yeah, so we're thinking like back in the 1900s when raw sewage was going directly to the system, we've now added a way to treat that sewage and a way to, when we can't treat it and there's too much of it, a way to store it so that we can then treat it. So now we are trying to aim for times where there's no untreated sewage within the waterway.
Wow.
So as we work to do that, our question is now how many fish do you think are found in the Chicago River?
Yes, and all right, we've got lots of folks chiming on in already with their responses. So yeah, friends, once again on the screen, we've got that QR code. If you're at menti.com still, it should have automatically advanced you to our next question. But look, we're all going to discover these answers together. So take that risk, take that guess, because we're going to learn one way or the other together, which is pretty fascinating about the work that Austin does and the rest of the conservation research team at SHED. Okay, well, we have some ambitious answers, I would say here, Austin. So as you look at these, right, we've got 12, 10, 60, 20, 35 species, and we'll still give some folks an opportunity to participate. But out of these 5 responses so far, do you see any that might or may not be close to where we're at right now, or are we way off?
No, we're in the ballpark, especially if you start to think about either thinking at like the whole regional scale of like how many fish are found throughout all of Chicago's waterways, or if you think more locally as like, okay, if I walked out to this specific riverfront park, how many species are there? There are 2 very different ways of thinking of how to answer this question, right? And I think we've hit on both of them really.
Wow. All right. Well, I'm sure we're all waiting to hear the answer. If you want to give it just another couple of seconds, but
I
Austin,
wish I had this while I taught classes because then you can see if students are paying attention.
I know, like in real time, right? And by the way, this is not, you don't have to participate. But here, oh, wow, okay, we've got a couple more responses here. But do you see the right answer up there, Austin?
Yeah, I see one that I would say is close enough to being right. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, let's discover together. What do we think?
Well, I think first we'll show people evidence that disentangling these treatment systems actually showed an effect in water quality. Yeah, this was the slide I was thinking of. So
perfect.
If we're disentangling things, we should expect pollutants to go down. And so this is actual data from the Chicago River system. The left graph is a graph of basically how much raw sewage is in the water. They actually count how many bacteria are forming colonies on a plate. And they've been doing that since 1985
Wow.
until now. And so during that period, that was essentially the period after the Clean Water Act. So that put a lot of enforcement on how we actually treat the water and how water is used in manufacturing and then makes its way into the system. But with that being part of sewage, we can see that going way down. The fecal coliform bacteria is actually used by the EPA as a distinguisher of how much contact you should have with the water.
Wow.
And that 3, and if we were to put a 2 on there, are the 2 sort of designations they have of like coming into contact or being able to swim. And so we're getting down there as we come to um, more recent times. The middle one that says phenols is a chemical that's made in manufacturing of things like plastics or bleach or
Mm.
lead paint or other weird things. It's really good at killing everything it comes in contact with. So we don't want any of that in the system. And what's super cool is we see it just drop off and stop being present. Um,
Yeah,
we don't see
thankfully.
that anymore. That's a great sign. Comes from some changes in wastewater treatment. And then the far one's free ammonia. Ammonia is a product that comes out of just general natural processes. So
Mhm.
urine is high in ammonia, different fertilizers are high in ammonia. We don't really want to be dumping that into the water. If you've ever cleaned with ammonia, it hurts your lungs. So imagine a fish swimming and in direct contact with it. It's not
Yeah.
very good. So seeing that going down means that the treatment plants are able to process all the waste a lot more efficiently than they were in previous years. So all these
And
things are great things.
yeah, and I would assume that as these numbers decrease, there's a number that increases that we all want to talk about. And that
Right.
is, of course,
The number of fish that have been found.
yes.
And so this is actually an image that the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District puts out. It's the cumulative number of species that they have found within the system more than one time. And so they have found over 70 species more than once in the system.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
if I dive into that data, almost all of them are species that should be native to the area. We'd be in the upper 60s if we were to cut out a few of the species that are invasive.
Wow.
And so it's super cool to see this number of species throughout all of the Chicago area. And the reason earlier I was alluding to like what would happen if I went to a specific park is that
Yeah.
this number is throughout all of the navigational waterways as well as different streams that feed into what we might call the north branch of the Chicago River, the Calumet River. And so if you go to just like one area, you're going to find a lot fewer species, especially when you think that you're only there during like one day.
Yeah.
So that's why they kind of count like how many times do we find them more than once or something. So
Yeah. Now,
super
this
cool.
data is absolutely fascinating. And it looked like we did have somebody hit the nail on the head with 60, right? Which is pretty special.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, Austin, what are you and the rest of the team, what are we trying to learn from this data?
Right. So that was a whole lot of like historic data that we pulled
Mhm.
together, trying to understand where have we come from and where are we at now.
Yeah.
And what that data shows us is that water quality has improved a lot. And with that, the fish community has improved a lot. But if you remember all the way back to slide 1, I talked about how we carved out these channels and that they're very straight and the walls of them are very straight. That leaves very little habitat for fish. And
Mhm.
fish respond to more than just water quality. And so now that water quality is pretty good, and we've seen a lot of these fish populations come back and these fish species start to live in the area, we're interested in trying to make their lives a little better by offering them some more habitat. If we can give them more habitat, we can actually have larger, healthier fish rather than just fish that are present in the ecosystem. And
Yeah.
one way of doing it in those like straight channels where we can't really change how the walls look is to maybe add in floating versions of what native vegetation would look like. And so we've been working with Partners Urban Rivers to put in floating wetlands throughout the Chicago River system. The 2 left images are of the Wild Mile, which is up near Goose Island.
Mhm.
That project has been going since around 2016 and really took off in 2018, 2019. And at the top left image, you can see the nature boardwalk that went in just a year or two ago. So
Wow.
super cool that you can get down there and get really close to those floating wetlands. Um, and then on the right is the next offshoot, which is us putting in some floating wetlands in the south branch of the Chicago River. This is down near the Bridgeport community and McKinley Park communities.
Yeah.
These floating wetlands are trying to provide habitat down there. And if you've come to any of our shed talks previously, we've talked about fish spawning. And so uh, some through some funding support from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation and the McGraw Foundation, we've been able to show that some of these islands are providing spawning habitat for fish. And now we're interested in trying to understand what other benefits these habitats are providing for fish. So if you can go to the next one, we have all these questions that we want to know now is more generally in the ecosystem, what habitats are important to fish and how do these floating wetlands fall into those categories? If we've seen fish are kind of spawning on them, can we start to show with what frequency they're visiting them? Do they visit them a lot as if they're kind of feeding off of them, or do they only visit them during the spawning season? Do they maybe go to them when water quality is poor, as if these floating wetlands are providing some sort of refuge for them? And then more generally, since it's an urban area and a super cool system that's been reversed and channelized, just what does a year in a fish's life look like and where do they go?
Yeah.
And so with this, we're kind of presenting on a new project we're starting this year, um, which uses acoustic telemetry, which is a really cool technique. Acoustic means sound and telemetry means like tracking or being able to figure out where it's at. And what we'll do is we'll actually equip a bunch of fish with these tags that chirp, and that chirp is picked up by a listening device. They use fancy words like acoustic hydrophone or acoustic receiver, but really it's a microphone and a battery. And so we can put those throughout the river and they can help us monitor what fish do throughout the whole year. And so we're interested in what are their home ranges, how frequently do they visit those floating wetlands, what are other key habitats that maybe we're missing by just looking at, say, the floating wetlands, and what might be a refuge during a poor water quality habitat or time. And then how far do they move during some of their migration? Some fish move to certain areas during the winter, others move to certain areas to spawn, and we'd like to kind of get an understanding of that.
Yeah.
So this project kicked off earlier this year. The left is an image of what the receivers or the microphone and battery sort of look like. They're not very big. They're about the size of maybe a water bottle. And we can put them in the river. We put out 34 of them, which are shown in the map on the right. And you'll see clusters of them. So down in the south part of the river there's a huge cluster of them because we're trying to understand the floating wetlands we put in down there. There's another cluster of red ones up near Goose Island, which is where the Wild Mile is. And then the other ones are kind of scattered throughout where there's different parts of the river where a fish might make a decision to go, say, left or right. And so we want to know where are they moving, and then with those clusters, well, really trying to fine tune where they are in that system. And so we have some initial outputs. What's really cool about working at Shed Aquarium and being so close to the Chicago River is that we can download this data every month.
Wow.
Most of the other researchers that use this technology can only visit it once a year. And so we're able to download things pretty quickly and get a handle of what's going on. These two images are from the same species. And one thing that's really common in species, just like differences in people, some of them are homebodies and some of them like to travel a lot. And so one on the left, each one of those red circles is a time that fish was detected. And the larger the circle, the more time it spent at that specific receiver. And a small circle means it was just kind of there for a second and moved on somewhere else. But what's interesting in the left image is just how many different receivers are showing up versus in the right image, there's two. circles, maybe a tiny third one.
Third one, yeah.
And so that individual doesn't really move around a whole lot. One way to interpret this is either just behavioral differences, or the one on the right is maybe on a spawning nest because this data is only
Oh.
coming from July and August. Whereas maybe the one on the left is a bachelor and he's searching and going around, you know.
Wow.
And so this is an image of that actual one that moved all over the place. We can actually animate and kind of see how they're moving throughout the different days. And so at the
Wow.
top, you'll see days counting and time going pretty quickly.
Hmm.
Uh, but that allows us to kind of then monitor where do they go. And this guy just runs a marathon. So it already looped over once. It loops over, I think, July
There we
11th,
go. Yeah.
10th.
Mhm.
Yeah. Just about a 2 week period. He moves about 3 miles a day, which is crazy and a lot. He's probably
Yeah.
our largest mover that we've seen so far.
I wonder if he signed up for the Chicago Marathon on Sunday.
He's been practicing for tomorrow.
Yes, exactly. All right. So you talked earlier about like overflows and water after big rain events. So this is really fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, at first glance, this looks almost identical to the last double images we showed, but this is showing the same fish before and after a large rain event caused raw sewage to be dumped into the river.
Mhm.
So if you remember when we had NASCAR here, it got rained out. They could only
Yeah.
do about half of their races because somewhere between 5 and 8 inches of rain fell in Chicago. That rain event was bizarre and caused so much rain to go into the combined sewer system that flooding of basements started to happen pretty frequently down in
Hmm.
McKinley Park, in Bridgeport and some other southern neighborhoods. Both those neighborhoods show up on the south of these images. And when that flooding starts to happen in people's basements, the wastewater management group turns on pumps that will pull water out of the sewer system and dump it into Bubbly Creek, which is that little offshoot that we see in the center of each of the maps at the bottom center. Um, so that happened on in the night of July 2nd into the 3rd. And some, I want to say 1.6 billion gallons of raw sewage,
Wow.
which is
Wow.
a lot. It got
Yeah.
dumped into it. And so we can see on the left where that fish was found during the 2 week period before July 1st. He was found kind of all over the area. And then for a week after July 3rd, he was found only down in the main branch of the Chicago River.
Wow.
That's the main branch that's down near the downtown Riverwalk. And generally, water quality down there is the same as Lake Michigan water quality
Oh,
because it is actually pulling water in from Lake Michigan. And so that water is quite a bit cleaner than the water that's found in the Chicago River and the rest of the area. So this
wow.
fish migrated all the way down into the main stem and hung out there for a period of days to seek refuge. So we're already finding that downtown seems to be a refuge during poor water quality events.
Wow.
And so another way to look at it is a way that we saw that tracking
Yeah.
image where the fish was being tracked. Another way is we could actually map it statically. So how do I create an image that I could put into a paper that shows where these fish go? So one way we're playing around with this data is going to kind of show up here is where we could map different regions. So let's say the sanitary ship canal, which is the southwest part of the river. Let's put that in yellow. Let's put the south branch where the sewage pumping happens in red. Let's put downtown where the refuge was in green. And let's put the north branch in blue. And if we click on the animation, it should kind of show where the fish goes during those different time periods and where he is.
Hmm.
And so the dates that are shown here go a little farther than what was in the previous image, where we do see the fish start to return back to the South Branch later on. But this is another way of us being able to show like how fish are moving through the system in a way that can make sense when it's like a ton of data, like that
Yeah.
animation won't show up in a paper or a newspaper or something. But here's another way of displaying it. So um, I think we covered a lot of information and a lot um,
Yeah.
new technology in this new project. And so I'm interested to hear questions people have or different conversation topics they have about the new fish tracking project.
Yeah, and friends, don't hesitate once again to use the Mentimeter. However, if you have a keyboard available to you and you just want to type your question into the chat, we are monitoring the chat. That is Alt plus H. That's the quick key to pull it up. But if you don't have that keyboard with you, if you're watching from a tablet or a phone, all you got to do is hover over the middle of the Zoom call, and there should be a little screen that pops up. It's black, a little bar, and there should be a little icon that looks like a chat bubble. Click on that, and you can start to type or ask questions, or you can go to that QR code and type in from directly through Mentimeter. But Austin, I'm just going to start off really quick because I think this work is not just fascinating, but incredibly important to the health and welfare, not just of these animals in the water, but us up here on land. So if you could really quickly just talk about some early connections between the health of the animals in our river ecosystems and how it might directly impact the health and well-being of us Chicagoans that live by this resource.
Yeah, well, one thing I like to talk about with when we cover all of that historic stuff is trying to understand, okay, the way that we do treat wastewater and stormwater and deal with it has an effect on the ecosystem around us. And that effect here, at least, is showing that we're having a positive effect. There's so many
Mhm.
other other parts of the world that are having like really negative stories come out. So I think it's super cool to talk about a positive story happening in an urban environment and how
Yes.
can we keep that positive momentum going.
Mhm.
Because as we talk to more and more people and get them excited about it, we can start to then create a more recreational space. You might be able to go kayaking or go fishing on these rivers and be able to actually
Mhm.
enjoy them as a natural resource that can create healthier communities.
Yeah.
If we think about the ecosystem, healthier, diverse fish communities can lead to less impacts on the ecosystem around it. Say, if there were very few fish, we might have a lot more mosquitoes. So, being able to
Yeah.
have a lot of fish that eat a wide variety of things can keep that ecosystem functioning and keep us from that sort of harm.
Wow.
Similarly, having a well-functioning ecosystem can reduce the amount of harmful bacteria, which is or harmful algae blooms that people
Mhm.
often hear about in other ecosystems. So um, those are ways that it can maybe um, have broader impacts. There's also a wide range of literature that suggests more exposure to nature and more abilities to get out into healthy ecosystem that actually has impacts on you and your
Mhm.
person and your
Yep.
health outcomes
Yep.
and your positive outlook on life, your attitude. So
Yeah, the link of a healthy ecosystem with your own personal mental health. Absolutely, there are tons and tons of studies over the years. Um, awesome. Thank you for asking that question. I know I was very selfish by asking the first one, but let's just jump in. So, really quick, on Menti right now, what are your thoughts on the work done so far in cleaning up on the river?
yeah, I think the wastewater treatment processes that have helped clean up things have done a great job.
Mhm.
Some of the remaining things that we're now thinking about are how there's a general lack of habitat, and habitat can have effects on how healthy individuals within a fish population are. So
Mhm.
the fact that they're there doesn't necessarily mean they're the biggest that they could be. And when we talk about wanting to have our waters be fishable, anglers want to have a large bass and a bass that fights hard, or a bluegill that's of edible size and it's not just like a
Mhm.
little sliver of a fillet. So one way we're trying to get towards that is providing more habitat to the system, which is a different task than what those who are working to clean the water quality are doing. And so that's where Shed and Urban Rivers can kind of step in, along with Friends of the Chicago River, who's really been helping doing some plantings in some other parts of the system.
Excellent. All right, so Marilyn wants to know what's up with the invasive carp we used to hear about all the time. Is it still there? Do we have to worry?
Yeah, I mean, so it's for those who aren't aware, there's a group of about four different species that are lumped into the term invasive carp. They used to be
Ah,
called Asian carps, but we're going away from using regional specifics for these names. Um, they did come over from Asia where they're native. They were used in aquaculture for a while to help clean ponds, and they escaped into the Mississippi
oh,
River. They their populations have boomed in the areas where they're present, and they've migrated all the way up the Illinois River to the point of where the Kankakee River meets the Illinois River. And where those mouths are is a few miles south of the Lockport Locken Dam, or I don't know if I said that one right. Anyways, they're a few miles south of where the federal government has built a barrier to keep them from
mm,
migrating forward. So they
wow.
haven't even made it to where the barrier that's been built is. And that barrier uses a couple different technologies to kind of make fish turn around so that they don't migrate through it.
Oh,
And so
wow.
that's what's happening with the invasive carps. Their invasion front, they call it, hasn't moved for 10 years. And
Mm,
we don't know why. The current
wow.
theory is that there's actually something in the water flowing down from Chicago that is keeping them from moving forward. But what's weird is that it's something that is really only affecting them. Because remember, we showed you how many different fish species have showed up in the river.
Yeah.
So there's something unique about their evolution and ecology that they're reacting to something flowing downstream from Chicago and not migrating forward.
That's so fascinating. And it sort of leads straight into this next question. Are there any animals that we don't see in the South Branch yet that we want to see coming back?
Well, you say animals. I mostly think of fish when I hear this question. Uh,
I mean, fish too.
yeah,
Very
we
good.
so last year, or actually this spring in the system, they caught a number of walleye,
Oh,
which is something we don't really see large numbers of. It would be cool to see more of those guys. They're top predators, and they're generally sensitive to pollution. So the combination of those two things, it would be super cool if they were in the area more frequently in larger populations. Things we don't really see northern pike or gar. Both those
mm,
are also top predators. And what's neat about those is they like emergent vegetation, which is vegetation that has part of it underwater and part of it above the water. And so I'm interested to see if these floating wetlands maybe provide something that they like, and they'll kind of start to use those as spawning habitat, or do some of the plantings that are happening with petal and plants with Friends of the Chicago River and Shed. Do those emergent vegetation start to provide some of that habitat that they would enjoy? And those would be cool to be in the system again because they're top predators. Top predator takes a lot of meals to support. So having them there means there's a lot of other things going on beneath them in the food web that is healthy.
for sure. Well, you talked about when you hear the word animals, you think of fish specifically. So now the next question is, what's the most surprising wildlife you've seen in urban areas like Bubbly Creek?
Well, if we think specifically of Bubbly Creek, lately I've been seeing more and more water snakes living in
Whoa.
the area, which I think they're really cool. A lot of people are scared of snakes. But to see that reptile living down here is, I think, really cool to see. We also last week, or not last week, 2 weeks ago, were paddling out near Bubbly Creek, and there was a spiny soft shell that was larger than like a dinner plate. So that's
Wow.
a big turtle that lives in the water swimming around that I think are really cool. They're super hard to study because they're so skittish and elusive, but we at least
Wow.
were able to see it.
That's fascinating. Yeah, that's a really cool, fascinating wildlife, if I have to say so. Oh, okay. Our next question, and Austin, you're the person to talk about this. Is there a way anyone can volunteer to help do this work with you?
Oh, to do it with me, um, interesting. I think we're starting new projects where we can actually take people out and go and um, look for and record where different birds and turtles are.
Mhm.
One way people can do it immediately is to go out and use their phones. There's a lot of phone apps that allow you to record wildlife observations. One thing we're really interested in is where we see different water reliant birds as well as turtles. And so if you're along the river and you see, say, a heron, or you see, I don't know, a painted turtle. You take a photo of it and upload it to iNaturalist. We can actually then work with that data and look at where are people finding these species, where are they not, and what's the
Mm.
difference in habitat in those areas. And that's one way that people can help scientists is by providing some of that location data. iNaturalist is really great for it. A lot of birders use eBird, and they're trying to figure out how to kind of migrate the two databases so that we can use both of them. But that's one way that I think would be super helpful.
Amazing. And I think for the North Branch, I know there's like kayak for conservation and some days that folks can volunteer and sign up to help with the North Branch. I don't know if there's anything for the South Branch yet. Um,
That's what I was alluding to, and that they might be
yeah,
coming online soon. So
gotcha.
by Goose Island, you can go kayaking with Shed, and Shed will teach
Yeah.
you about the history of the river. Then you'll kayak over to where the Wild Mile is, and you'll learn a bit about how those function. And then they collect data on what birds are where, what turtles are where, see what pollinators are on the islands. They also generally take notes of are the islands flowering or what is flowering or not. Um, and then so that's one way. Another way to help is to join on any of the river cleanups that happen. So there's
Yes.
park front and riverfront cleanups that people can go and help remove trash and litter from the area. I always like to say that any little bit helps. There's been research to show that when an area is cleaned of trash, it actually accumulates it much slower than an area that
Wow.
already has a lot of trash. So uh, I try to have people have that in their back pocket so they feel even better about not only did you clean it, but that area should stay cleaner for a while.
I love that. Okay, and this is going back a couple of points ago when you were talking about the water snakes and the creatures that you've seen. Joe is very, I don't want to say concerned, but curious. Are those water snakes dangerous?
Dangerous.
Yeah.
Uh, unless you're a frog, no. Uh,
I love that.
yeah. Uh,
All right. Well, so Paul is pointing out it looked like those floating wetlands when we showed the pictures that they were all above the water surface. So could you hang potentially platforms below the surface to provide growing areas for emergent plants? Or do you already see that happening within the root systems?
So that's something that our partners Urban Rivers are testing out, is trying to see if they kind of have a platform that's under the surface a little bit. Could they put some of the actual emergent plants on those? So there's very specific plants for our area that would basically have the bottom chunk of the bottom like half of their body underneath the surface, and then the leaves up above the surface. So they're trying to see if that will work. The other way is just finding generally shallow areas where you can do plantings of them, which is what Friends of the Chicago River has kind of been leading for a while with their paddle and plants, where you'll take like a whole basket of 100 different lizard tail or um, some other plants and kayak for a little bit, and then you'll find a shallow area and put the plugs in. And those stands have been growing pretty great up in the North Branch and the Calumet areas.
Wow. Well, Austin, look, you've answered a ton of questions. You've shared an incredible amount of knowledge with all of us. And I, for one, am thankful for you. Before I wrap up and thank everybody watching at home or at work or wherever they're at, do you have any final words of wisdom, advice, anything you'd like to say before we let you get back to your incredibly busy day taking care of the aquatic world?
I like to tell people to go out and try to use the river as a resource as much as they can. The more people use it, the more we can fight for it and keep it healthy. And by
Yeah.
use it, it could be anything. You could go to the river walk and have wine at City Winery. You could
Mm,
kayak on it, take a architecture tour. The more popular it is, the easier it is for us to help make it better and better.
I love that. Well, thank you, Austin. And you have been quite popular this afternoon. So thank you. And thank you and all of your team for continuing to take care of not just fish here, but there and everywhere around the world. So thank you so much, Austin. We'll let you get back to it.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, big round of applause in chat. I know we can't visualize that, but huge round of applause. Thank you so much, Austin, for your work. All right. Whew. We're almost there, friends. And there's one more thank you that I have to do. And let me share my screen for this because it is big. Thank all of you for being here, by being members. Friends, we can't tell you the importance of all the work that you do. Just by joining us here, by becoming members, ensuring that the beauty of our ecosystems across the globe remain healthy and thriving and continue to stay healthy and thriving, thanks to your curiosity as well as our mission and our work. But you are a huge part of that. If you'd like, up on your screen is one more QR code. This does not go to Mentimeter. This goes to another portal for you to find new programs, exclusive contents. You can gain access to all sorts of incredible things for your visits here. But look, friends, it is approaching 2030, which of course is our 100th year anniversary. And Shed Aquarium is thrilled to be embarking on such a transformational centennial commitment with an exciting surge forward that leverages nearly a century, right? 93 years so far of success to accelerate this work for people, for communities, and most importantly, for aquatic life. So this vision includes deeper community investments and partnerships, as we've learned just through Austin right now, with the modernized aquarium experience up on site and accelerating aquatic research and just so much more as the next century takes hold. So clearly, this work is going to include every single person gathered here, as well as the folks at home that may not have joined us today. So we just want to thank you, and we understand the importance of protecting and preserving our shared blue planet. So look, as we continue this commitment, join us throughout the fall to connect even deeper with your impact as a member. If you want to learn more about the Chicago River and what we talked about with Austin's work, you can definitely join Shed Aquarium's auxiliary board because on October 12th at the Mars Brewing for Freshwater themed trivia with Shed's Conservation Action Team. So head on over to Mars Brewing for that freshwater themed trivia with our very own Conservation Action Team. Might be hard to beat them, but you can click the link in the chat, which I am going to help copy and paste here in just one moment as we pull up the chat. Make sure I'm sending this to everybody. Well, it didn't copy, so let me do this one more time. But once again, let me just do some other really cool events coming up on November 17th. We've got member nights in Wild Reef, so you can meet some shed experts and look nature in the eye with hands-on activities and more. You might get some surprise and delights from all sorts of different animals and animal teams around Shed. And look, we totally and definitely look forward to seeing you, not just through the end of the year, but also through next year as well. Whew. All right. Oh, let me post this link. What am I doing? Friends, thank you for your patience with me as I navigate technology as well. I just posted in the chat the link for that incredible night of trivia. And so you can come and just learn and discover all sorts of incredible things as well. All right. Well, friends, it is 5 till the top of the hour. We don't have any more questions. We will let you take the next 5 minutes to get back off of lunch, to go back with your day. But friends, thank you so much for sharing your afternoon with us, with Austin. And I think I speak for everybody here at Shed Aquarium when I say thank you for making sure that we live in a world thriving with aquatic life, supported by folks who love, understand, and protect it. Because those folks are all of you. All right, friends. On behalf of Austin, on behalf of Shed Aquarium, my name is Brian. Thank you all so much and enjoy the rest of your day and have a great weekend. All right. And if you're racing in the Chicago Marathon on Sunday, great luck. Break all the legs. Well, that sounds bad. I'm from theater, so that's what I say. But have a wonderful time this weekend and enjoy the sunlight and the river. All right, friends. We'll see you next time on Shed Talks. Thank you so much, and we'll see you later. Bye, everybody.